Do you believe in miracles? No. There were no expectation-defying shocks in the Scottish Cup yesterday, and unfortunately that extended to Parkhead, where a brutally clinical Celtic cut down Barry Robson's Rovers side 5-0. With Daizen Maeda suspended for the home side's midweek clash against Bayern Munich, he made the most of his starting slot up front, crashing in a hat-trick, alongside goals from Luke McCowan and Hyun-Jin Yang. There was no shortage of effort or application from the Rovers, but they were kept at arm's length by Celtic, and it quickly became an evening to forget, and we moved back to league business with a reassuringly padded bottom line for next year's accounts. This is the Oh No 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 podcast. I am Duncan Cameron, and with me this afternoon to look back on yesterday's defeat, I have Allan Douglas Munn. First of all, how are you, Allan?
I'm all right, yeah. It was a game of football, I suppose.
Just really
say. Yeah. I'll upset a lot of the listeners now by saying I'm actually looking forward to watching the rugby in a little while as well. So, on the egg chasing.
Okay. We've got Leslie Maeda on as well. How are you, Les?
Aye, all right. I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like to support a team where you're disappointed that you haven't bolstered that attacking line, or where you don't get bored of winning by that many goals every week, but each to their own, I suppose.
Yeah. They wanted their CEO sacked this week, and their net result from 2 games is 11-0.
Does that not make it 34-0 in their last 9 home games now? Something like that?
I think it's 34-1, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ludicrous. And we've also got Blair Hopcroft as well. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, mate. Very well. It was. I had a great day. I'm just going to throw that out there now. I had a cracking day. Really good. Football, meh. The rest of it, yeah, I had a great day.
Oh, let's just stick with that. I had it in my notes to ask you, how was your is that a boardroom experience? Was that the headline?
Yeah. Underwhelming is my ultimate take from it. I've been kind of pondering this since it happened. I was talking to my wife this morning coming back, but I'd just like to start off because I know that some of the board of directors or whatever will be listening. So thank you very much is what I will say on behalf of me and the Langtrees. We had a cracking day. Really enjoyed it. It was a really different experience, but we always talk about that thing that, like, we're really fortunate to support a small club, like the opportunities that we get to connect with the team and connect with the club and all the kind of little facets that happen. Like yesterday, to be fair, I can't imagine there's any Celtic fan has ever won a competition to be in the boardroom for a game kind of thing. So even little things like that, but they're just a big faceless machine. Like it. So we arrive. I actually went to the dry gate before it, so I'll start there by saying what an amazing thing that was. So absolute hats off to Graham and Laura and everybody else who put in all the work to put it together. I think it was 150 or so Rovers fans in the Drygate Brewery, singing Geordie Monroe and drinking unfiltered Tennants, and it was great. Such a simple idea, but so well put together. And then the Shambolics came on and played. They've got a new Rover song actually, Streets of Wraith it's called. So there was a couple of clips went up on socials of that. That was great. So yeah, did that first. Absolutely brilliant. And then went along to went along to Celtic Park, and then walked in the front door. And I mean, that was amazing. Walking up they've got that kind of, is it the Lisbon Way or Lions Way or whatever it is? It's like you go up and they've got all the statues and stuff, and you wander in, and you go in the front door, and somebody met us and gave us our tickets and stuff, and we went through into this, what I assumed was like a reception room. It was just this big long room, trophy cabinet up the side with the Scottish Cup and the League Cup and the Premier League and a replica of the European Cup and all the old strips and like loads of Bayern Munich stuff. So it's obviously been set up for this week. They obviously rotate stuff around in that. So it was class. And then we're just kind of free bar, so we're having a few pints and whatever. And that was it. Like, it was weird. There was no welcome to the Celtic boardroom. We've got our delegates in from Rovers. We've got the family of Jimmy Jameson, who once upon a time played nothing. Not a Scooby who was there. There was no welcome. There was nothing at all. Apparently, there was two directors came out. The CEO, they were trying to get sacked. Yeah, I think he came out for 5 minutes, and apparently Peter, is it Lowell or Law? Is it Lowell? He came out. Yeah, he came out for a bit. Apparently, I never saw him. But yeah, free drink, bit of food, out to the comfy seats, watched the game, back in at half time for some more food, which was good. And then we had a free bar for an hour after the game. And 2 hours later, me, my wife, and the Langtrees were, I think the best way to put it was asked to leave. They were like, we are closed now. You must leave. But Neil Langtree, it was so funny. Neil actually turned to the women and went, right, so I'm never going to get to do this again. I want to be able to say we were the last people here, so you need to chuck them out first, because I'm not leaving until they've gone. So she chucked out this other couple of guys that were still hanging about, and then we wandered out and got a taxi. It was tremendous. Such a good day.
I was going to say, you started off by being like, kind of underwhelming, and then just described an incredible experience.
Yeah, it was great.
I know what you mean. It's just
weird.
Kind of impersonal almost. Like,
yeah.
Kind of tourist attraction more than
totally
kind of personal touch type stuff.
Like, I think at one point there was one player came in, and we were kind of the other end of the room, but I think it was, who's the young boy that came on towards the end? Is it Kenny? I think
Johnny Kenny. Yeah.
Johnny Kenny. I think it was him, because I think it was his parents that were in. So they'd went up, and there was a few folk getting photos of them, but like, it wasn't just getting your photo taken, it was hugs and stuff. Like, it was clearly family or friends or whatever that were there for that. But like, we were in there for, we were in at about 4:15. So we were in for an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes before the game. There was loads of people milling about, no idea who any of them were. Nobody spoke. We just stood with the Rovers folk. But it was the basic things of, you go in and you've got a pint. So it was pints of tenants. And the best bit, my wife went to the bar and asked for a Prosecco. They went, I'm really sorry, we don't do Prosecco. We've got Moe. She was like, aye, that'll do, eh? So she was just drinking champagne. It was tremendous. But you're standing with your pint, and then it's a buffet, but it's a hot buffet. But it's like plates and cutlery and stuff. But there's no tables. So you've got a plate of food and a pint, and you're going, what do I do? Like, I can't eat it. You're like trying to wrestle stuff and juggle stuff. It's just really weird. Really weird.
My heart bleeds for you, Blair. It really does.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're really tough time there, mate.
It was really tough.
Good stuff. I'm glad somebody had a nice day. Right, let's get away from your prize winning and get into some of the misery. Alan, the big news before kickoff was the inclusion of Josh Ray in the starting lineup. Now, we had a bit of a chat around all of that kind of pre-match. We've not really heard your thoughts yet. So what do you make of Josh Ray as a signing? And, I mean, is there anything we can glean from yesterday?
I don't think it's news to anyone that I'm a big fan of Kev. I'm one, like most of us on the podcast are, to be honest. None of us have really been calling for his head. I think we kind of all saw what he brings, the good he brings. We're not stupid. We can see the downsides to his game as well. My initial reaction to the signing was, yeah, great to have some competition. I don't know if he's, like, last season, for example, if you'd offered me a swap, Kev, for Josh Ray, I'd have been like, nah, you're all right, I'll stick with what we've got, thank you very much. To a certain extent, I kind of still feel that way. I don't think he's a significant upgrade, if at all. My kind of main reaction yesterday to seeing the team was just really gutted for Kev. Like, really, really gutted for him. You kind of think he's earned the right to go out there on that stage and kind of play for us.
Yeah.
And, I mean, ultimately, I don't think it would have made the slightest bit of difference. The one save Josh Ray makes, I think Kev makes that as well. He looked pretty decent with the ball at his feet. I suppose that's the one big thing a lot of folk will take away from yesterday, is that you forgot to not panic every time the ball was passed back to him. You start going, oh, it's all right, it's no Kev. Because he kind of showed quite quickly that he was going to be pretty comfortable with the ball at his feet. he took one high ball that I think even Kev maybe takes, to be honest. But I don't know, I thought he was fine. And ultimately, it's good to have competition for Kev who is at a similar level to him. That's kind of what you're wanting. 2-0 Aberdeen, by the way. Haha. But yeah, I mean, I understand the sign. I mean, I think Robson was quite clear in early interviews that he wants us to be more solid at the back, and you could read in between the lines a few things he said. You kind of got the idea maybe he wasn't a big fan of Kev, and he was going to look to make a change. And he's shown a couple of times now that he's pretty ruthless with that kind of thing, which ultimately, if you're wanting what's best for the club, you probably need someone to be ruthless and not take sentiment into it. Like, that's why it's sometimes good to have someone completely fresh and none that's not been involved with the club before come in to take on that role, because there's no sentiment comes with it at all. It's all about he comes in, assesses the squad and makes the changes he thinks he needs to make, and ultimately I think that's maybe what he's done.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I think I felt exactly the same way. Like, actually, that was my initial reaction, was I felt really bad for Kevin Dabrowski on a kind of personal level. Like, if that was me, I would be absolutely gutted. And I really like the big guy, so I was gutted for him. But at the same time, I'm very much on record as a big safety. Like, there's a reason why I'm not a football manager, because that's not what you want. You need to have that kind of hard-edged. Ultimately, if you think X player is better than Y player for any given game, that's the only thing that should matter, really. So as much as I might not like it, as much as it's not the decision I would have made, I'm not holding it against Barry Robson. I'm not going to say it was the wrong decision or anything like that. I think the proof will be in the pudding over effectively the rest of the season.
I thought the defence looked a little bit more confident in him. And it's maybe a wee bit harsh, but there was a couple of times they played passes back to Josh Ray yesterday that I did think to myself, I'm not sure they would have played that to Kev. Like, there was a couple of times, Jordan Doherty in particular, there was a couple that he was kind of in a bind. And I think, actually, you might have put that out for a throw-in or a corner and you've just rolled it back to Ray in the known that he'll hook it to the halfway line at least.
Especially with Maeda around, who is stupidly quick. You don't necessarily put Kev under that pressure.
Completely.
And that's like, categorically, there's nobody is going to argue that that's not, if you stack the two of them together, that's possibly the starkest difference between the two. Is that Josh Ray is very good with the ball at his feet, Kevin Dabrowski isn't. So, yeah, it's interesting if that's almost like all it takes. Do you value that highly enough that actually that's enough? And look, categorically, there's managers who will. Managers at a very high level who just won't accept a goalkeeper who isn't very good with the ball at his feet. And it's where your trade-offs come elsewhere, really. Because there was a couple of moments, as you say, there was that when they were under pressure, they were using them. And there was one pass in particular that he sent out to Josh Mullen on the right wing in the first half. And you're like, that's like a legitimately very, very good pass.
It's a good ball.
Like, if an outfield player did that, you'd go, that's a good pass. Yeah. And ultimately, that's not really something we're kind of used to seeing. So yeah, the proof will be in the pudding over the rest of the season as to whether it is a case of they're there to compete with one another. Is it now that Ray's got the jersey that he'll put in performances that means that he keeps it? Like, who knows? We'll see what happens from there. In front of Josh Ray, the Rovers lineup was terrifyingly close to what I had asked for ahead of time, which is a worrying sign for everybody involved. So a kind of flat back five, Jordan Doherty going in to be the sort of right back of that back five, kind of four strung across in front of them, and then Jamie Gullen sort of ploughing a lone furrow by himself up front. Les, any comment, criticism of the setup? Does it matter? Was there a... Would it have mattered?
I don't think so. And I think what is worth just acknowledging, and I said it in the pre-match as well, is that we're coming into that game with quite a few injuries. And that would be a struggle even against a competent championship team with 2 fit senior midfielders and no big unit up front. So you couldn't really... I don't think... Well, I certainly didn't have any complaints about the lineup. You're kind of thinking this is probably the best we could have done with the hand that Barry Robson had available to us. I did note that there was no George Guitau, and hopefully there's a legitimate reason for that, whether it was just a knock or an illness or something. I do have a horrible feeling deep down this guy's going to be a pub quiz question in 10 years' time. You know, boy that signed and never played. I hope he's not going to be like the Andreas Thorson or the Jo Osse of the John Hughes and Gary Loxeys.
I'm hoping he's going to be Regan Henry, because it feels a little bit like the first time he came, doesn't it? Like, remember he got warmed up at East Fife and got trotted out and then got sent back to sit down again?
Yeah.
Exactly that. But no, I mean, other than that, I think there's as I say, no Sean Byrne, no Jack Hamilton, no Louis Vaughan, and clearly obviously no Sam Stanton as well. So you're already limited in what you can do. I think with the hand that we had, that's what I would have expected, and I had absolutely no complaints about what was sent out there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on. It's really, you've got kind of 2 options. You either, do what we did, which is, play effectively that 5-man defence and try and play from there, or you try and pack the midfield. And we don't have any more midfielders. Yeah. So that really kind of makes that decision for you. And I mean, ultimately, based on what we saw, yeah, I'm not convinced there was a secret strategy there that was gonna, give us an even chance. You know what I mean? Alan, you said this just before we started, but it's different watching a side like that in the flesh as it is watching on the telly, and you can really just start to see the quality that's there.
Absolutely.
I mean, Alan, I'm not going to spend ages waxing lyrical about Celtic by any means at all, but who really kind of stood out for you in that sense, that, looking down on that side?
Probably, I was really, really impressed with Luke McCowan. I thought he had an absolutely outstanding game. To pick him up for £1 million is a phenomenal bit of business. And it's a case of when he undoubtedly ends up in the Scotland squad and folks start, I knew that he's in Celtic. I'm sorry, I have no problem with him getting called up for Scotland. Also, I think it's probably the first time I've seen Callum McGregor in the flesh. And my God, he's good. Like, he's just so calm on the ball, spreads it around. Their whole midfield was like, you look at that back line of theirs yesterday and think, we could maybe get her then. But you need to get past the midfield first. And we just didn't. Like, we would try and bring the ball out and they would just say, nah, you're all right, we're having that back, thanks, lads. They were just so good. It was like watching, I think I've seen it compared to, when at the kids team, when the kids take on the parents just for a laugh. And, it doesn't matter what kind of ability the kids have got. The parents are just bigger, faster, stronger in every way and just take the ball back when they want it. And that's what it felt like. It was just like... You realised it quite quickly, so you thought, well, you know what? Let's just have a good afternoon anyway, and the score really doesn't matter.
This is the problem with this Celtic side, I think, is that they don't have like a sort of fatal flaw or like a patter streak in them. Sometimes like you've got that where like, right, you're having to go away to Ibrox or to Parkhead. Rangers in particular are quite bad for this. Where you're like, actually, you know what? This Rangers side beat themselves sometimes. Like, they've got it in them to be really self-destructive. And I think particularly Brendan Rodgers' Celtic, for whatever reason, he's managed to just chase that out of them. There's no fun in them at all.
Even like Schlupp, you think, well, he's got a funny name for a start. And maybe he's another one of these guys who's going to come up for England and it's not going to be as easy as he thinks it is, and he's going to he's going to end up rubbish and go back down with his tail between his legs. He looked every bit the former Premier League winner yesterday. He was just so calm and composed. He was really, really good.
just strolling it. Basically, I think since they had Shane Duffy, they've not really had that kind of guy where you're like, well, he might score 4 own goals. Like if we make him, he might. They don't have that to them. You're like, I don't know.
They're so fast though. It's the pace, they play the game with.
Like,
because I was saying as well, I said before we started, if Anthony Ralston is quote unquote pish, which is what we hear on a daily basis in Scotland, oh my God, how bad are we? Because he looked so far ahead of us. So far. That cross that he put in for, is it Yang that scored the goal? Oh, just unreal. Like, absolutely unreal.
That they generally, their fans kind of stand the boy Yang either. Don't think he's good enough. They're really annoyed at all the game time he gets. Like, oh, he must be smashing and training. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Did you see him? Did you see Brendan Rodgers' post-match on Premier Sports? I was just watching the sort of post-match analysis-y bit that they did with Mulgrew and Hutton, and they had Rodgers on and they're talking to him, and he basically said, he didn't quite say it, but he basically said, this team we're playing today are so pish that what we decided to do was to install our own targets for the game. So, like, and it's a bit like, I remember years ago, like, coaching school football or whatever, and you're playing against a school that have got, like, 300 bairns, and you've got boys that are playing pro youth or whatever, and you're like, right, boys, second half, we need to be 2 or 3 passes before we score, or, you know, we're going to go down to 2 touch, or just try and keep it interesting. And he basically said that they set out from the outset to never let us have 6 passes in a row. That if it got anywhere close to that, they had to shut it down. Like, that was their target. I'm like, oh my God. Like, he's actually gone into a game against us and went, they're never allowed to have the ball for 6 passes. You stop that. Like, it's mad.
Aye. And that, I mean, that ultimately, I think that was the sort of worst thing about yesterday, was that we never got a chance to have any fun at all. Like, the timing of the goals is probably the main thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, again, it's just that, it's like, if you're just talking generically, like, when's the best time to score, or when's the worst time to concede? Straight after kick-off, right before half-time, right after half-time.
Yeah.
Any one of those would normally be it. And again, it's you talk about games like this and going into them, and it's like, you need to try and, like, get their fans to turn on them. And, you know, like, again, it would be a different story if you were going to play Rangers, because their fans aren't sold on their manager, and if you can get to half time at 0-0, they'd be on their backs. Whereas I think the other thing with this Celtic side is their self-confidence is so high in kind of their team and their players that actually, see, just flip it around. See if we'd scored in the first 5 minutes, I don't think they'd have panicked at all. No. They'd have basically gone, oh, that's annoying, we're going to win 5-1 instead of 5-0.
It would have been Dave Mary in 82 kind of stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It just, like, it's such a tough ask to go and actually try and kind of do anything at all, really. Which I was accused by a listener who may or may not have been my own mother, that we were too negative on the pre-match. Too kind of defeatist, and that we should have really at least stood up someday to be like the devil's advocate and be the positive person. But I think results bore out that we weren't too wide of the mark there. Yeah, and the only other thing I'm going to before we kind of run through some of the kind of key moments of the game itself, there was a quote from it was a St Johnstone supporter actually who'd put this up after full time yesterday on Pie and Bovril. Robbie shared it with us. And I thought it was a pretty apt summary. He basically said, you can't win versus Celtic. You sit in and try and frustrate them, and their movement will kill you. You press high, then their pace on the counter will kill you. You try and build possession, and their energy and relentlessness will kill you. And even if you're level by 70 minutes, they just bring on 5 internationalists worth a combined 30 million quid, and they'll kill you. Which, that's kind of how it feels. Yeah,
that was 9 changes yesterday. 9.
Yeah.
That's mad. So mad.
That's actually like that. The guy Yang, generally, and then when they're putting out their first 11, he can't get near it. No. And I did say this yesterday as well, but the fact they picked up that injury in the first half, and it's like, oh, we've got an injury, we'll need to put Rio Hatate on, like the best player in the country. It's just...
I actually, my reaction to that happening was exactly the same as my reaction to you talking about it there. I just started laughing. I was like, fuck's sake.
Yeah.
The point of the second half as well, let's get some minutes into Jota.
Jota, yeah.
Okay, get Jota on and just get some minutes
and Engels.
And
Engels as well, yeah. It's like, that's the kind of downside of them playing a weakened team, is every substitution makes them better. Like,
I mean, I kind of mentioned it in our group chat at the time, and I was speaking to John Greer about it on the way out last night, and I was just like, that was a bold and could have been daft decision by Rodgers. Like, they didn't need those guys to come on. They've both just played during the week. They've got a massive game coming up. Now, I know we weren't really getting close enough to hurt them with a challenge or whatever. We weren't really throwing ourselves into them, but you could easily pull a hammy or something like that. Like, it just seemed a big risk with very important players for a game that was absolutely dead and buried. But obviously confident in their fitness and what have you, that it wasn't an issue.
Yeah. Right. I don't know how much value there is really in kind of picking through the instance. I suspect we're not going to be too critical anyway, but just for the sake of completion. So 6 minutes in, we do lose a goal, having already been fairly close to going one behind already. Les, any particular kind of observations on this one? It's a bit unfortunate the way the ball pops out and the Rovers defenders kind of swarm a little bit and it leaves Maeda free.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you were picking holes, you could say, all right, you've got Murray and Hanlon both charging over it. Could somebody leaves Maeda free? But like the fourth goal, and I think we'll talk about this again, 99 times out of 100 in the Championship, you will get away with that because one of them will get a foot on it. The striker won't quite be in the right place. The ball won't quite be, the pass won't come with the right weighting and whatever. 99 times out of 100, at the level we usually play against with the guys we usually come up against, that's not necessarily going to result in a goal. So I think, a bit unfortunate, as I say, if you're picking hairs. Maeda did that in the World Cup against Croatia, against Josko Gvardiol. So, that's the level of quality that they have. Unfortunate, but a really crap way to start a game. And another game where we've conceded in the first 7 minutes, although I don't think I'm going to add that to my spreadsheet because I think that is a bit unfair.
That does feel a bit harsh.
It's not the same as Brian Graham getting a free header at the back post or something like that. No. I think I'll just... That goes for the cross ball for the fourth goal as well. That's not getting added to the chart because it's not fair.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic altogether. Yeah. Blair, would it be overstating things to say that we sort of grew into the half after that?
No, I actually don't think it would be. I think there's always an element of whether they're going full guns at you as well. Like getting the early goal settled them in the sense that they didn't need to get another goal. Like, because I think they realised after about 7 minutes that we weren't the biggest threat to them. Going the other way, and so it does kind of settle the game into a bit of a rhythm. But with that being said, I mean, I think the way I described it last night in kind of summation of the whole thing was going to Celtic Park is hard work, and we worked hard. So, like, I would think Robson will come out of that game looking at the way we performed, particularly in the 40 minutes or so between the two goals, and actually will be pretty pleased with how we acquitted ourselves. We got out a couple of times. We actually had a couple of chances. And the second goal ultimately comes from a decision to go for the long throw and try and create something at the other end, which, I mean, is it brave? Is it stupid? No, it's football. Like, you can't go to a game in Celtic Park and not have a goal. Like, you have to. But the pace they break with, you just... Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a theme that the way Les described that there is almost perfect. Like, you get away with that 99 times out of 100 in the Championship, especially that second goal, because they don't break that quickly. But no, I thought we did. I thought we grew into it. I thought we acquitted ourselves well. I thought that the roles that were put out everybody was suited to, and I thought actually everybody performed pretty admirably across the piece. But when you switch off for a second or two against a team of that quality, you get punished, and it's brutal. It's really brutal.
Yeah, that throw-in actually is a perfect demonstration of the theory behind bringing everybody back for set pieces.
Yeah.
Because that was, as they were lining up, my dad said that. He's like, they've brought everybody back, which feels odd. Like you're Celtic at Celtic Park, you've got a throw-in to defend, and Maeda starts about 30 yards away from his own goal. But that's why. It's so that if the ball does break, you're then at full pace, and we can't live with it. No. And that's
we
exactly
so nearly did, though.
Josh Mullen. With Josh Mullen. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it was so marginal. Had he just got a slightly better touch on it, or if Matthews had just headed it out for a throw-in at that point as the ball drops down rather than trying to control it. Such fine margins. But they're fine margins in their half. Like, we were actually in their half at that point, and they still broke on us.
Yeah, that's the thing with Matthews is like so the ball's coming down over his head, so it's difficult anyway. And as you say, you could look at it and go, you're taking too big a chance. Like you need to just like header that away or put your foot through it. As you say, you're in Celtic's half. Like it almost doesn't compute. That you're like, well, if I miscontrol it here, the ball is going to be in the goal 4 seconds later.
It's so true.
But it is. It is that. It's the sort of perfect demonstration of the gulf between the sides, because you're not getting that anywhere else. Like, and I think actually that goal possibly even more so than the others. I don't know if. Like Aberdeen, Dundee United, Hibs score that goal. I think that's specifically that kind of raw pace combined with technical ability that Celtic have got. Because you could find a guy, I can't think of somebody off the top of my head, but there certainly have been guys in the second tier who are as quick as Daizen Maeda is, but nowhere near the technical ability.
Yeah.
I mean, effectively, if you see somebody that quick, you know they don't have any technical ability. So when we signed John Fredrickson, you're like, oh, he's 6'8". So well, he definitely can't be any good. Because if he was even remotely capable with a football and 6'8", he'd be playing much higher than us. But that really just kills the game at that point. Because I think you start to... I mean, before kickoff, I think you'd have taken 1-0 at halftime. And after 5 minutes, when you're 1-0 down, you'd have definitely taken 1-0 at halftime. And, I think you're right, Blair, that when you get that throw in, and you could see they had a very clear discussion of, is this just going to go long? Or are we going to just try and, keep things under control? And I think it's the right choice. You're only going to get a handful of chances across the 90 minutes.
You've got to go.
And I mean, Hanlon gets the first touch on it as well. It's just it's unfortunate that it doesn't then fall to a Rovers player, because it could have been a chance.
The speed. I was just going to say the speed that they break with, but you can underestimate just how impressive the run from Maeda is. Like, to keep pace, to stay onside, and to drop your marker. Because he goes central to almost draw the defender with him, and then just peels back. But by peeling back, he's keeping himself onside that whole time. But it all happened so quick. Without word of a lie, I was talking to Neil Langtree, and I leaned over, and in the time it took me to say how impressed I was with how we'd done in the first half, the ball had gone from the throw-in to the edge of our box. Like, it was that, and I'm going, what, how? No. Like, we had a chance, like, just so fast.
It was a demonstration, I suppose, of you're going to get so few chances in a game like that. You have to take them when they come. I mean, we had one, really, the whole game.
Yeah, just
one thing it does remind me of. I was just going to say, one thing it does remind me of, to bring a bit of happy news into this. There's one time I can remember the Rovers having a player with that sort of ability that was so far above everybody else in the pitch, and that was Damien Castelnuovo at East End Park. which is a similar thing. It goes from a corner, Davy McGurn making a save, and then just the speed at which he broke at down the pitch.
Yeah.
To get there and then to have that ball control and that quality, and you're thinking that was that kind of golfing quality as well. And again, it ended up being from a corner to a few seconds later in the back of their net. That times 100.
Yeah, it's always nice to remember that too.
Absolutely.
A gratuitous Castle and the Oval reference. There we go.
Good. Yeah, it's literally 7 seconds between Matthew's touch and the ball being in the goal.
Oh.
Which is, when you think that he's 65 yards away from the goal and that they've run it that distance, it's unreal. That's the golf. Just encapsulated in that one incident. We kind of skipped past it, but let's just jump back very briefly because Josh Mullen has a chance in the first half, which is, I mean, really, I think it's the chance as far as that game goes for us. It's a lovely little ball, kind of round the corner from Jamie Gullen. Alan, at the time, I was really confused by this. I couldn't work out if Josh Mullen if it was a really good attempt or not a very good attempt, if the goalkeeper had done really well or done really badly. I don't know if it was just the angle. I don't know what you made of that from Mullen.
I think at the time watching it, I didn't think Mullen had done very well with it at all. It seemed quite tame. Watching it back in the highlights, it's probably better than I thought it was, but ultimately, you need to take chances like that, and not that it makes any difference. We'd probably end up annoying them and losing 8-1 or something like that if we scored that goal. But it would have been a moment, because it would have been an equalising goal. It would have been a great moment to celebrate. And I think Mullen himself will be disappointed. I think he knows he should have done better. He's got enough quality in that right boot that he should have done better with that. Although apparently it doesn't count as a shot on target if the goalie's that far. I saw somebody on Pine Bovril or Twitter or something saying, the stats have given us a shot on target. Are they really counting that Josh Mullen one? It's like, well, aye. Because if the goalie lets it go, it's a goal, so it counts as a shot on target.
On target.
Yeah.
No, there's an angle from behind the goal. It's not going in.
It's not a target.
I didn't see that angle.
It's kind of looping away.
Yeah,
I didn't see that angle then.
Because I thought that at the time. I thought always, because it's actually, I will say this, I think it's the right idea. I think taking it early from where he is the right idea, but he needs to go and obviously what he wants
left corner
is to go across the keeper and get it in at the back post, and he just doesn't catch it well enough, and it's going wide of the near post. But the keeper makes a real the keeper makes a real meal of it and ends up sort of kind of parrying it away. And that's how I couldn't work out what had happened at the time, because I thought, as he hit it, I was like, he's not caught that properly. And then the keeper palms it away from the corner. It's like, maybe he has.
The way the keeper palmed it, I actually thought, and in that moment, I thought he must be offside, because it was one of those kind of half-arsed, it could have, for me, from the angle again, it looked like the keeper could have just caught it. But he did this kind of palming it away thing. I thought, maybe it stopped, but it hadn't.
I apologise to whoever made that comment then, because I didn't see the angle from behind the goal where it wasn't on target.
Right, that takes us up to half time. Let's
hang on, we've got the penalty shout.
Yeah. I'd forgotten the penalty shout, actually.
I lost the run of myself.
At the time, I was screaming for it. But
So
apparently, they didn't even show it as a replay on the telly. That's how...
No, it was actually a foul the other way. Dylan caught... I think it was actually Maeda.
It was Maeda, yeah.
Yeah, but it was Dylan caught him. I was up. I was screaming for a penalty.
In his own penalty box?
Okay.
You're going to win anyway.
Yeah. Everybody went for a corner, mate. They all do it. Even the good sides do it. Yeah, I lost a run of myself shouting for that penalty, much to the amusement of the 3 or 4 rows in front of me that had a wee giggle at me. And somebody, I think it was Andrew Barrowman at half-time, went, good to hear you shouting for that penalty. Forgot where I was.
That, to be fair, is one of these ones. See, just because there's VAR involved, and I don't think we need to talk about it, it wasn't a factor in the game, but you're like, I've seen stupid penalties given.
I was convinced it was coming back
for go out for about 4 minutes. So it's like, they're all going to go mad if this does get pulled back. And I don't know what happens with the time in that sense. Like, if you play on for 4 minutes, do you get those 4 minutes back again? I don't know.
I think it gets added.
But yeah, I'd forgotten about that. But yeah, maybe it could have changed things around. But
Not a penalty.
as I say, let's us have a quick break, and then we'll cover off the second half and get out of here, to be perfectly honest. Blair,
Yes, mate.
you're a man,
Yes.
and you have thoughts and feelings and emotions.
Yes.
Are you good at talking about all that stuff?
Well, I try my best, but I don't know. Probably not as much as I should.
I'm the same. I feel better after getting stuff like that off my chest, but I don't do it anywhere near often enough. Have you heard about Andy's Man Club?
They're brilliant. They create a safe space for men to sit down and talk about the important stuff. And they do it right across the country as well.
Yeah, exactly. They've got more than 200 meetings across the UK, and it's every Monday night at 7 o'clock, including one at Celtic Park.
And if anyone wants more information on it, they can go to andysmanclub.co.uk or search for Andy's Man Club on Facebook. It's okay to talk, and now we're going to get back to talking about the Rovers.
So the Rovers getting at half-time, obviously very, very disappointed having conceded that second goal right on the break. As you say, changes the team talk. And then Barry Robson, his message for the first half was, right, don't concede an early goal. And then his message for the second half was, don't concede an early goal. But, I mean, it's just these things are largely beyond your control, effectively. And it's Luke McCowan who gets this one. At the time, just the blondness. I thought it was Maeda's hat-trick, but that was obviously still to come. But this one, I think, this one and the fifth are very similar. Just in that, like, Celtic very, very good at sort of passing you to death and then actually sort of working their way to the byline, just moving you around. And that, when you're playing that back five, if they do get round the side, the ball across the 6-yard box is just so difficult. Because, I mean, both of those, the third and the fifth, it could have easily ended up just being an own goal because there's so many bodies and the ball comes across. Blair, do you have any thoughts on that? Is there anything to add?
It's just, again, it's like you say, it's so hard to defend, but it's harder to defend because of not just the quality of the pass in terms of where it's going, but the pace that's on it. You know, quite often I think at our level, when you see balls like that coming in, they're kind of, you know, passed across the box or whatever, and the defender's got a chance to hook his foot round it, and you've always got the chance the defender will rifle at the top corner. There's so much pace on that ball. Your best chance of doing anything is just to direct it because there's so much pace on it. And like, yeah, I mean, great finish. And we've mentioned already, but I thought he was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, you also have the situation where the players know that the ball is going to be that good. So they make runs and movements that players at our level probably don't think to make anyway, but wouldn't make because you've not got the same confidence that the ball's going to be that. McCowan knows, if I make this run, that ball's going to be there right on my foot where I need it to be. Well,
that's also, Luke McCowan is like the 6th most attacking player in that team. Like, they've got strikers and wingers and all that, and he's halfway down the list, and he's making those runs and those kind of finishes. It's
he's another one that kind of get near the first team. Well, I know that he kind of get near it, but he's no, you know, in that first choice midfield, he's not in it.
He's been brought in to play in games like that.
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair, has kind of surpassed expectations, but that's what he came in for. Like, you'll play the weekend when we've got Bayern Munich on a Tuesday. But yeah, I was also very, very impressed with him. Definitely. The fourth goal then follows on from that, as they often do. This one, I think if you're sort of pointing fingers effectively, this is the easiest one to find a weakness. I mean, I think it's forgivable given the amount of effort they put in, but it's the one that it's most easily, if you go, well, you're playing a flat back five, you shouldn't really be caught out at the back post like that. Allan, is that just as easy as Jordan Doherty's just switched off for a second and Yang's got the run on him?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it looks like a great ball, but you don't imagine for a second that that's where Ralston was trying to put it. And it was a cracking run and an outstanding finish by Yang as well. To take it first time like that, it was a really, really nice finish. But yeah, you're annoyed to concede a goal like that. If you, like you say, if you've got 5 across the back, you shouldn't have a man free at the back post when nobody anywhere near him.
Yeah, it's the kind of one that
Well,
like,
must
Murray
be
switched off too. Wasn't it just
No.
Doherty? Murray was sleeping too. The two of them, because you could see like as a 5, 3 went, 2 didn't they? Big gap. I do wonder as well, had it been Kevin goals, if Kevin been in goals, if we'd have been hearing he should have come out and taken that. That's bounced outside his 6-yard box. How's he no coming for it? I don't know. Nonsense.
I mean, just as a finish, it was such a good finish from Yang as well. Because again, that's the other thing. Like if we do that, Josh Mullen, I think, could put a crossing like that. But the problem is Finlay Pollock's then going to get in the end, and it's going to be hit the advertising hoardings or something like that.
Yeah.
Or somebody else puts the crossing and they overhit it, and then Pollock or Stevenson or whoever sprinting to get it. So just the weighting of it and the quality of the finish. And like I say, that doesn't happen in the Championship. No. But I would agree. I think that is to an extent on Doherty and Murray in as much as Young was allowed so much space to be there in a position to finish.
Yeah, you want somebody closer to him so he's at least having to think about the defender as he's going in. But yeah, as I say, I'm not going daft at Jordan Doherty.
Switch off for a few seconds, eh?
Again, it's the quality of the movement as much as anything. Like that's what happens. That's why they're going to win the Premiership at a counter. The fifth goal, as I said, is very similar to the third. Maeda gets his hat trick. Again, it's just they've got umpteen bodies coming in. It's so difficult. It's Stevenson this time is the kind of man who's on it, but it's really a case of the pace that's on the ball. All Maeda needs to do is just get there, and it's going to go in the goal. Whereas Stevenson needs to somehow get there and like direct the ball like upwards or like through himself and Maeda. Like once it goes across, you've got such little chance of stopping that.
The angle as well from the side of the cross. So when it's looking right across, you can see a moment where Stevenson kind of looks. So he's running towards goal, obviously. He looks over his left shoulder and sees the cross coming. And in the time it takes him to turn his head to the left and then turn his head back, Maeda's past him. It's like he's so fast that like I'm not even entirely sure Stevenson realises that he's not ahead of him. Like by the time he is ahead of him, Stevenson hasn't even realised yet because he's no turned back. Just again, it's just so and a great ball. And again, the pace on the cross and the touch for McCowan to take the ball in that area and get the ball out for his feet and get that. Like you've sometimes you've just got to go, fair enough. Like that's really good actually.
They nearly scored another one very similarly actually, and Paul Hanlon got a great challenge in.
Yeah,
probably didn't know too much about it other than just get in there before the Celtic player gets to it.
Because that's the touch from McCowan. Because it's normally that ball gets because it gets fizzed into his feet, and you think like, you want to bring it in. You want your first touch to keep the ball as close to you as possible, but instead he basically puts the ball into the only space that's available to him.
Yep.
So he almost plays like a through ball for himself with his first touch, and it's so difficult to track that and to predict that, and then he cuts it across and. There were a couple other chances. Josh Ray makes a decent save from a deflected shot, and he tips one over the bar as well. I think both of them you would sort of expect your goalkeeper to make. So I don't think there's effectively any value in trying to kind of interpret what Josh Ray is going to be like for us based on that. I don't think there's really any benefit in really judging anybody's performance on an individual level. It's just that
we've ruled ourselves out for the Champions League. I think that's.
I suspect we wouldn't have made the last 16.
Yeah.
The only other thing I've got in my notes here. Bit of a question raised around use of substitutes in this one. So the Rovers were pretty clearly running about all afternoon. In that way that, they talk about you can conserve energy when you don't have the ball. I mean, I'm not convinced Callum McGregor broke into a jog at any point. And there was a guy behind me who kept roaring at the Rovers to press as a team. Like, to what end? What? Like, bearing in mind we're playing a back five, so we're already a man, if not two men short of them further out. You'd have to start sending like Liam Dick out to go and try and press Hatate. Like, just such a fool's errand. They're just going to...
That's a sentence that should never be said out loud ever again. Liam Dick pressing Hatate. No.
Exactly. Like, to borrow a phrase, they're just going to be bopping it about. And they're going to be through that space. Like, all you can do, really, is sit in and hope that somehow there's an angel watching over you for 90 minutes.
Ultimately, if you're pressing, you need to be on them for their first touch. By the time any of their guys got anywhere near their players, they'd already taken the first touch and then passed it to someone else anyway. They couldn't get near them.
Nah, I mean, I think if you can see that, like, relative to the rest of their players, not necessarily relative to ours, Ralston and Scales aren't at the same kind of technical level. But it's really a case of, like, can you somehow get onto those two and capitalise when they try and play it between one to the other? Because even if one of them two manages to get a pass off to literally any of their other players, you've effectively then lost that press because they're just going to spin it away. And you can see, like, McGregor's obviously so good at that, particularly in a game like against us, where he just takes up that space. I mean, Ross Matthews was following him everywhere, but he only needs 2 yards. And he's knocking it across to Schlupp, and then they're away down that side. So the Rovers were understandably shattered because they've basically had to do all that running, all that expending that mental effort of tracking those runs all afternoon. But we only got one sub until the last kind of 2 minutes when we Aidan Marsh on as well. So Finlay Pollock came on for Jamie Gullen, roughly the hour mark. I don't have it in front of me. Blair, would you have expected a bit more movement from the bench?
I think in an ideal world, yes, but I think for me, Les kind of hit the nail on the head at the beginning when we talked about how many players we don't have on that bench. So we talked a little bit about, you know, every time Celtic made a substitution, they seemed to bring on an international and they got even better. Every time we make a sub at this point, with the squad that we had laid out and the system that we had set up, I'm not entirely sure how we improve things hugely. Connolly maybe, you know, like gives you that engine and that running, and you know, Pollock can run, Montague can run, but there's also, for me, there's an element of sometimes it's working, like everybody knows their job, everybody's in and they're doing their job. It's I say it's working, we're 5-0 down, but
that
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So but my counter argument to that would be, I think all of that is fine until you're 4-0 down. Yeah. I mean, look, arguably at 3-0 you're not coming back. But as soon as it goes to 4, that game's gone. And I think it basically then, like, we're thinking about other games to come. So the main one for me, Dylan, he's played basically every minute recently.
Yeah.
And it's such a hard shift as well. It's not just that he's out in the park, he's having to do all that running. I don't know why with 15 minutes to go, 20 minutes to go, you don't stick Lewis Gibson on. And so, look, we've used him as a left wing back in the last couple of weeks. So it's, look, at that point it's training anyway. You're not putting him on and saying, right, well, he's got to go and score 4 goals for us, please. We want to try and take this to extra time. Like, it's training. It's attack versus defence. On you go, find out what a Premiership winger looks like. Find out what it's like to try and at least go and beat a Premiership right back once, if you can get a shot at it. On the other side, Josh Mullen absolutely run himself into the ground. And you've got Aidan Connolly, who, as you say, like, they're very different players, but I don't think there's a great gulf in quality between them. Like, I don't think that's, you'd ever say, oh, I'm having to put Aidan Connolly on for Josh Mullen. That's a downgrade. Or even, that's an upgrade. For me, they occupy a very similar, you know, if they were FIFA players, they'd have the same numbered rating. Like, very different attributes, but ultimately they're at the same level. And I just think, I don't know. I'm not criticising necessarily. Well, actually, no, I am. But what I'm not doing, sorry, is making a wider criticism. I'm not saying, he didn't make these substitutes, ergo Barry Robson is X, Y, and Z. I'm just saying, yesterday, that confused me slightly. I would have thought it was a chance to get some guys some minutes, rest some guys. A very, very tough shift to make, effectively 10 of those guys do 90 minutes. Or 9 of them and 1 of them did 88 minutes. Alan, any particular strong views one way or the other on that?
First point would be, I suppose, a positive point about not making subs earlier is, it looked at one point like, my God, we've broken another striker. I didn't think Jamie Gillan was coming back on. So see him then play an extra, probably 45 minutes beyond that point was really, and he didn't look any worse for wear from it either. He was still running about, so that was encouraging. I see both sides of it. It'd been good to give the players a bit of rest. We've got a far, far more important game coming up next Saturday. So, maybe rest them. They obviously look at all the stats and stuff. They know how fit these guys are, so they're obviously confident. And it would also have been quite nice for some of the other guys to just get a taste of that, going on there and playing on that pitch. Maybe it wouldn't have been nice, so I suppose that's the other side. That's the other side of it. Do you worry that it dents their confidence if they bring Kai Montague on and he gives the ball away and Celtic go and score another goal? I don't think it would have been an issue, but certain Rovers fans just like to moan about anything after a defeat, even a defeat against Celtic.
No, come on.
Would I have made changes? Would I have made changes earlier? Yes. But, as I've said many times in here, I know bugger all about being a football manager. So, I kind of have to trust his judgment over mine.
And I suppose that's the thing is, he's made a deliberate decision. It's not like it hadn't occurred to Barry Robson to make substitutes.
Yeah, I can make subs.
Yeah, the final whistle goes and he's like,
not forgotten.
Something I've forgotten to do. He's made a deliberate
Why
decision.
did he keep changing their players? Are we allowed to do that?
I think it's... I'm going to downgrade it from criticism to observation. I find it interesting that he didn't make any substitutes, I suppose. It really. But ultimately, that game yesterday has very little bearing on anything else for us, really. I mean, I asked Scott that in the pre-match, does this game matter? And I think Scott said, unless it hits double figures, no, it doesn't. And I'm kind of inclined to agree with that. It's not a close enough competition for us to really be able to read anything into it.
No.
And I think 5-0 probably is the net equal result almost. At 10-0, you're like, well, that was a bit embarrassing. And at even a 1-0 defeat, you're like, we've actually done pretty well there. We can take, a decent bit out of that. I think at 5-0, you're a bit like, that's par, was the phrase I was looking for there.
Yeah, you wouldn't have got great odds with Celtic -5. Would that thought?
No.
And that, Dundee lost 6-0 there midweek. So, it's not... obviously it's a bad result, but nobody with a reasonable head on their shoulders is kicking off because we lost 5-0 at Celtic Park.
That doesn't mean that nobody's kicking off, though.
Well, no, quite.
Maybe we should talk about the suggestion of going part-time on the back of that.
I saw that last night. That's incredible. I love that.
That wasn't a serious suggestion about talking about that, by the way.
We should, honestly, as far as batshit crazy goes, we should go part-time because we lost 5-0 to Celtic. Oh my God.
Just to add again, just to reiterate, with 4 starting players unavailable. I think I just want to kind of make that point again. So Barry Robson, when he came in, he was probably told, right, you've got Lewis Vaughan, star player, injured, but he's coming back. You've got Jack Hamilton, big striker, coming back soon. Sam Stanton, who has been out the team, but have a chat with him, the situation might be reversible. Within 2 weeks, Sean Byrne has left the pitch on a stretcher. The Sam Stanton situation has become irredeemable. and Jack Hamilton has broken down on the training ground in a way that is irreversible. So, he's not been dealt an even hand, I don't think, in some ways, Robson. I mean, I think, to be fair, just to give Robson his credit, he seems to be getting a tune out of Josh Mullen. And Josh Mullen was our best player yesterday for me.
He was very good.
He's getting a tune out of him. He played very well at Hamilton. He played very well yesterday. For reasons best known to himself, he absolutely loves Finlay Pollock. Any opportunity he gets, he will chuck Finlay Pollock on the pitch. And I mean, Pollock got a bit of a break. Granted, he did shoot straight at a defender's abdomen, but Robson will have something there. So again,
that's it.
Yeah, just to defend it, I don't think Robson's not been dealt an even hand, and there's really only so many levers he can pull, especially in a game like that. I don't think going part-time would free up more wages or get more players and necessarily solve that.
I think the
You're just
Mullen
competing with our growth.
See the Mullen-Connolly thing? It's starting to become a bit of a, the managers, are they only allowed to like one of them? Does that come as part of their contract when they come into the club? Because Connolly was obviously it looked like he was going to be the next he who shall not be named and would never come back. And then he came back in, he did really, really well under Collins and was back again. It was like, Connolly's back, this is great. And Robson's come in, and I don't know if he's necessarily dropped out completely, but he certainly doesn't seem to. He was the one for me yesterday. Place. Yeah, he was the one that I was really surprised not to see on as a sub. Not so much the rest of them. I have to say, I think throwing Montague in there, it's almost nostalgic. Like, come on, let's give the young lad a chance at Celtic Park kind of thing. I don't think Robson's about that. He's not interested in that nonsense. It's like, we've got a job to do and I want to get out of here and hold my head up high. But Connolly was the one for me that I thought, I'd have expected to see him at some point, because the one thing you can never question with him is his work rate and his ethics. Like, he strikes me as a Robson player, like a really, really Robson player, but doesn't he seem to fancy him? I don't really get it.
I suppose the thing that is really is we've seen more of Josh Mullen because he's been used in a couple of different places, whereas Connolly is more of a kind of an out-and-out right winger, and we've not really been using them. But this is where I think the next few weeks get very interesting, because basically since Robson's arrived, we've had this kind of chopping about with, so the Ayr game, I think we're pretty much writing off. He was just in the door. The team played the same way they had the week before under John Potter, so you'd assume Robson hadn't had a huge input to that. We had the back-to-back games against Falkirk, which were both very specific kind of challenges, almost. Yeah. They were like the opposite of run-of-the-mill games. They were really tactical, really kind of weird, kind of double-header. With Hamilton, then you've got a derby, both away from home. Then you've got this game here. It is almost like the sort of baptism of fire is over now. Yeah. And we're actually just going to get a run of, effectively, run-of-the-mill league games. And this is where now I think we'll learn a lot more.
3 or 4 at home as well, which could be... Is that 3 Saturdays in a row we're at Stark Park? Which is weird. With an Airdrie away midweek game kind of in the middle there as well.
Yeah, it's been a very weird kind of calendar recently with the way that the home and away games have gone. So it'll be interesting to see how the team sort of settles down, almost, and what default Barry Robson looks like. Because we've almost had a lot of custom Barry Robson for specific scenarios. So it'll be interesting to see that, in a run-of-the-mill game against Airdrie on a Tuesday night, who does get the nod? What is the system? Who does play? So interesting to see. It's almost like the kind of the unusual part of the season is over, and now, I mean, effectively from next Saturday onwards, what you have is just the running, and what kind of tone that run-in has will be determined by the next few, probably. As you say, 3 out of 4 at home. You take
February's massive.
9 points from those. It's actually, this we're struggling a bit. We could push for 4th potentially. You get 2 or 3 points from those 4 games. It's a very different conversation. So we'll learn a lot, and I think we will actually learn more about Barry Robson under normal circumstance.
Saturday in particular, actually, you lose on Saturday, and it kills off any lingering hopes of fourth. Really, but you beat them, and you think, oh, win our games in hand, and we're right on their tails, and their form's a bit ropey. Doolan might lose his job. There's all sorts of kind of shenanigans going on there.
Exactly, and we will talk about that a lot more on Thursday night when we will be back. Yeah, because Brian Graham lists Partick Thistle, thanks to his
gutted.
Yeah, staggering to think that's he doesn't get sent off constantly. But yeah, I've not seen it. Apparently, it was a soft second yellow. The referee rubbing his hands, giving him the opportunity. I'll wait and complain to somebody inside. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what the tone of that podcast like, and what that brings. Actually, that'll be Thursday night. So we'll look forward to seeing you again then. Thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.